Welcome to Finding Holiness, where we delve into timeless Torah wisdom, revealing the sacred in everyday moments. Join us on a journey to elevate your spirituality and discover holiness in every aspect of life. I'm your host, Rabbi David Kadosh, and together, let's embark on a path of spiritual exploration. I hope you enjoy this next episode. Erev Tov, everybody. Welcome to another installment of our Back to Basic Shiur on Wednesday night. Glad you can join us here live. Hashem, some yummy food again for those that are online and are still debating whether or not you should come here. There you go. Up close and personal. We got yummy food waiting for you whenever you're ready. And for those listening online, you're still welcome. Even I'm sure you have your own food there and drinks and whatnot. And for those listening on our podcast, either tomorrow or the next day, or whenever you want, Beruchim Abayim, welcome, and for joining. Obviously, all our classes are found on our podcast website, findingholiness.com. We're happy that you can join. We're happy that you are here. And without further ado, we are going to continue today in our first installment of Chumash. We are on Perek Bet of Sefer Bereshit. Last week we completed the section of the creation, the 6 days, and now we are beginning with Shabbat, which is the start of Perek Bet Pasuk Aleph. And after we conclude the 30 minutes of Chumash, we'll move on to our halacha as we are normally slated to do. So without further ado, we are on Pasuk Aleph of Perek Bet, Vaychulu hashamayim veha'aretz vechol tzeva'am. And the heavens and earth were completed, and all their host. God completed on the seventh day His work that He made. And God rested on the seventh day. From all the work that He made. God blessed the day, the seventh day, and He sanctified it. For on that day He rested from all His work. Asher bara Elohim la'asot, that God created to make. Okay, so let's look at Rashi. Rashi Pasuk Bet, Vaychal Elohim bayom hashvi'i. Rabbi Shimon Omer. Rabbi Shimon says, Basar badam she'eno yodea itav urga'av. A man of flesh and blood does not know the precise times and moments of the day. He tzarich leosif mechol ala kodesh. That is the reason why we are obligated to add from the mundane onto the holy. That's why every Shabbat doesn't start precisely at sundown, but rather it starts at a few minutes beforehand, because we need to add from the mundane to the holiness, because we don't know exactly when it starts. But God, who knows the exact times and moments, He enters Shabbat at the hair breadth, exactly at the moment, and it's as if He finishes exactly on that day. Shabbat began for God exactly at the moment. So therefore, Vaychal Elohim bayom hashvi'i, on the seventh day exactly. Davar acher, another way to interpret this, says Rashi, Me haya ha'olam haser. What was the world missing at this moment? What was missing? Rashi says, Menuha, rest. That was the only thing that was missing. Up until now, it's all been about work. But now, we have rest. Bat Shabbat, bat Menuha. Shabbat came, so has rest come. Kalta v'nigmera ha'melacha. This is how the work was completed. This is why it says, Vaychal Elohim bayom hashvi'i. On the seventh day He finished. What did He finish with? He finished with rest. Rest was part of the creation, and it took place on the seventh day. Says Rashi on Pasuk Gimel, Vayvarech and Vaykadesh, two leshonot, two different verbs, and He blessed and He sanctified. This is referring to, Rashi says, Berecho baman. He blessed the Shabbat through the man that was going to in the future come down from Shamayim. Shekol yemei hashavua yarad lahem omer lagulgolet. For all the rest of the days of the week, as brought down in Parashat Beshalach, Yarad lahem omer lagulgolet. Only a certain amount fell, the amount of omer lagulgolet. However, ubashishi, but on the 6th day, lechem mishneh. It was a double portion. The beracha is that he should have stopped the month completely for Shabbat like he did with the rest of the items. So what's the beracha? The beracha is that he added to it on Friday with the double portion. Not only did he bless the man that way, but he also sanctified the man. Shelo yarad kelal b'Shabbat, because nothing fell on Shabbat. And the pasuk is speaking to us what's going to happen in the future. Ramban has an interesting point here. The Ramban says the berachah and the kedusha of Shabbat are for the people in the future who are going to keep the Shabbat. Those who keep the Shabbat, HaKadosh Baruch Hu blesses them and sanctifies them, and that's what is interpreted al Shem Ha'atid. But nevertheless, the Vaikadesh, the here and he sanctified, is in reference to the man, being that it didn't fall on Shabbat. The lashon of kedusha, when we speak of somebody who is kadosh, is someone who is removed from the mundane, totally separated from the mundane. That's someone who is kadosh. So therefore, by kadesh, the man itself was removed from the Saturday. It was removed from Shabbat and was put on Friday as a double portion. Asher bara Elohim la'asot, says Rashi, ha'melacha she'ayta re'uya le'asot b'Shabbat. All the work that was supposed to be done on Shabbat, kafal va'asa'ah b'shishi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doubled up and completed it on Friday, kemo shemeforash beBereshit Rabbah, like it is written in the Midrash in the Bereshit Rabbah. Okay, let's move on back to the Chumash, Pasuk Dalet. Ele toledot hashamayim v'haaretz behi bare'am. These are the offspring, or the branches of the heavens and the earth when they were created. Beyom, on the day, asot Adonai Elohim eretz v'shamayim, the day where Hashem our God made eretz v'shamayim, the earth and the heaven. V'chol siach hasadeh, and all the trees of the field, terem yeh ba'aretz, have not yet been, are not yet on the ground. V'chol esev hasadeh terem yitzmach, and all the greenery, all the herbage have not yet sprouted. Why? Ki lo himtir Adonai Elohim ala haaretz, because God had not brought down rain yet on the land. The Adam ayin, and man is not there la'avod et adama, to work the ground. So again, this from this pasuk on, or Dalet on, we're recounting a second time a lot of what happened in the first chapter of the creation of the trees and the esev and the creation of man. The pasuk continues, pasuk vav. Ve'ed ya'aleh min haaretz. A mist ascended from the ground. Ve'hisha et kol penei adama, and then watered all the face of the earth. Vayitzer Adonai Elohim et ha'adam. God formed Adam, afar min ha'adama, from the ground of, or from the dirt from the ground. Vayipach be'apav nishmat hayim, and he blew into his nostrils a life, an neshama. Vayi ha'adam lenefesh chaya, and man became a living being. Okay, so let's pause there and we'll go to Rashi. Rashi, pasuk Dalet. All right, ele, whenever it says ele ha'amurim lemala, it's included what's written above. About what's written above? Toledot hashamayim va'aretz, the branches of the shamayim va'aretz, the offspring of the heavens and the earth. Behi bare'am, when they were created. Beyom asot Adonai. Says Rashi, limedcha, to teach you, shekulam nivreu barishon. Again, he's repeating the thesis statement that he had in the first chapter. According to Rashi, everything was created on day one. Everything was created on day one. It was just put in place and it came out on different days. But day one, all of Shamayim and all of Aretz and everything and all the offspring that came with it was created there. That's why it says Beyom, on the day that the heaven and earth were created, which was day one. Davar acher, another interpretation. Rashi here is expounding on the fact that the letter Hey in the word Behi Bare'am is written small letters. Behi Bare'am, Behe Bera'am, that the world was created with the letter Hey. Interesting here, I have a note here that says that the letter Hey is the only letter in the alphabet that involves no work on the part of the mouth. Everything, there's something that's happening, the lips moving, tongues moving, throats making sounds, but hey is just breath. Is the most effortless sound you can make is the letter hey, in reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Also, when he created the world, for him, it was like with no effort. It was just kacha, like a snap of a finger. So that's what it's a behe bera'am. Shnei emar, as the pasuk says, Beyah Adonai Tzur Olamim. Yah, the name of Hashem, Yud Hey. Rashi says, Bishtei Otiot Halalu Shel Hashem Yatzar Shene Olamim. With those two letters of God, the Yud and the Hey, that's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created and formed the two worlds. Tzur is from the Lashon Yatzar Olamim, the two worlds, the Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba, this world and the next world. Velimedcha kan, and he's teaching you here. Sheha Olam Hazeh Nivra Behei. This world was created with Hey. And then in brackets, he's put here remez. Why is it a Hey? What does this allude to? Why is this world here created with the letter Hey? Just like the letter Hey is open at the bottom, okay? It's open as an opening, right? Picture the letter Hey, you see the opening. So too this world is open for those people who wish to repent and do teshuvah. It's ready for them. They fall, but they're able to climb back up through the upper opening of the Hey. That's the letter Hey. That's why this world was created with the letter Hey. Veha olam haba, but the next world, nivra beyud, is created with the letter Yud. Lomar, to teach me, shetzadikim shebeoto zman mu'atim. The tzadikim that are going to go to the next world, unfortunately, are small in number. Kemo Yud shehi ketana ba'otiyot. Just like Yud is the smallest letter of the Aleph Bet. The Maharsha writes that the tzadikim act humbly, like the letter Yud. So therefore, there's Zocheh to Olam Haba, which was created by the letter Yud. Another remez that Rashi brings down with regards to this letter Hey, this time taking the opposite stance, looking at through a negative lens. He says, remez sheyerdu hareshaim lemata lirot shahat. That the wicked will fall through the cracks. They will fall at the bottom of the Hey, and they would descend to Gehinam. Kehe zot, just like this Hey, shesetuma mikol tzedadea uftucha lemata, the Hey which is closed on the sides and open at the bottom, laredet derech sham, and the evil people will fall to the Gehinam, to Ber Shahat, through the opening at the bottom of the Hey. Okay, nice. Let's go on. Rashi, terem yeh ba'aretz. So Rashi tells us a rule over here. He says, kol terem sheba mikra, anytime you see the word terem, which literally means before, okay? He's saying it doesn't mean before. When you see terem in the Torah, lashon ad lohu. It's a lashon of not yet. Meaning it's there, but it's there, but not yet. Ve'eno lashon kodem. He's saying it's not a prior terminology. Ve'eno nif'al, and it's not a verb. Lomar hitrim kasher yamar hikdim, like we say hikdim, he preceded him. This pasuk is what proves it. Because if it actually meant before, okay, before they were on earth, then the words for he didn't make it rain didn't belong yet. It must be, if a God is talking about that he didn't make it rain yet, that there's something there to work. Okay, so therefore it was just not yet sprouted. The trees were not yet there. But as we're going to see, they were ready to go. Ve'od acher, and another proof to this, the pasuk says, Ki terem tireun, meaning, adayin lo tireun, that you will not yet fear. Ve'af ze tefaresh, and so you can explain it, which means as follows, adayin lo haya ba'aretz, there was still not yet in the land, k'shigmera beriyat ha'olam bashishi, when the world was finished creating on the sixth day, kodem shenivra adam, before man was created. Ve'kol esev hasadeh adayin lo tzamach. The herbage of the field still did not sprout. Now, uba shelishi, on day number 3, shekatu vatotze haaretz, when the Torah tells us on day number 3 that the land shot out all the herbage, lo yatsu ela al petach karka. Amdu ad yom shishi. The greenery stood at the opening of the land. It was just below the surface of the dirt, says Rashi, and it stood there until day number 3. The Gemara in Masechet Chulin says that from here we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu desires the prayers of the tzaddikim, as we're going to see. Lama? Why did it stay right there at the border of the earth and the air. Ki lo himtir. Rashi says because it didn't rain yet. Oh, the pasuk says it didn't rain. Uma ta'am lo himtir. Why didn't it rain yet? Lefi she'adam ayin la'avod et ha'adama. Because there's no man to work. What's the purpose of bringing rain if there's no man to cultivate the earth and to make sure that everything's growing properly? Ve'en makir betobatan shel geshamim. Not only that, he wouldn't know why the rain is beneficial. So there's no point of bringing rain. So in the meantime, he kept it right there till he brought rain to show Adam that rain is needed, so that he can work the land. Uksheba Adam, so when Adam came, v'yada shehem tzorech la'olam, and he realized that rain was an essential part of earth, hitpalel alehem v'yardu. That's when he prayed for rain, and the rain fell. In fact, the chidush over here is saying, ve'adam ayin la'avod et ha'adama. The word la'avod here is not lashon working, because there was nothing to work for Adam. The greenery was already there. He didn't have to plant anything at first. He didn't have to plant a tree. The trees were ready to sprout. They're ready to grow. So what's the avodah here? The avodah is the tefillah. As we know, tefillah is the avodah. That's the service. We don't have korbanot nowadays, so we have tefillot. So the whole idea here was, hitpalel alehem ve'yardu. He prayed for them. But until the rain fell, ve'adam ayin la'avod et ha'adama. Then there was no point of praying. I don't know what I'm praying for. But now that the rain fell, that's when he prayed. And the trees sprouted, and so did the grass. Adonai Elohim. So this is the first time we see in this pasuk, Hashem Elokim, Eretz V'Shamayim. Hashem Elokim, Adonai Hu Shemo. Rashi says that Yud Kei Vav Kei is his name. Elohim Shehu Shalit, that he is the ruler, V'Shofet, and judges al Kol HaOlam. This is the meaning of this. Wherever you see Hashem Ulakim, Adonai Shehu Elohim, is God, that it is a judge. Rashi Pasuk Vav, Ve'ed Ya'ale, that a mist ascended, Le'inyan Beriyato Shel Adam, with regards to the creation of man, He'ela HaTehom, Ve'hishka Ananim, the waters of the deep rose up. This is the Ed that he's referring to. Ve'hishka Ananim, and moisturized and created and gave water to the clouds. For what purpose? Lishrot ha'afar, so that they could soak the earth. V'nivra Adam, and Adam was created kegabalze, like this baker. Like a baker creates a dough. Shenoten mayim ve'achar kach lashetisa. First, the baker has to pour water into the flour so that he can knead the dough. Afkan vehishka ve'achar kach vayitze. That's why the pasuk also here first states that he watered the ground to make the earth into a muddy substance, and that's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Adam from this muddy substance, just like a baker creates his bread by kneading the dough. Okay, pasuk zayin vayitzer. Vayitzer, Rashi here notices that there's two yuds in the word vayitzer. So Rashi says shete yetzirot over here. There were two creations, two formations happening here. One of them was yetzira la'olam hazeh. One of them was for this world, and yetzira letechiyat hametim. The second one will be the formation of the animal's back during the resurrection of the dead. Aval bibhema she'ena omedet ledin. But for the animals, when the animals were created, the animals do not stand in judgment. They're not judged for what they do. An ox can gore another animal. It's not going to be punished and gain up, right? That's just the way they work. Lo nichtav b'tzirata shel shnei yudin. It doesn't write the word vayitzer with two yuds. It just writes one yud because they're only here. There's no olam haba. There's no techiyat hametim. What did he do? So next Rashi, vayitzer Hashem Elokim et Adam afar min ha'adama, the ground, the earth dirt from the ground. Rashi says, tzavar afaro mikol adama. He gathered dirt from all around the globe. All around the globe. Me'arba ruchot, from four directions. Why did he have to do this? Shekol makom sheyamut sham tehe kolatto likvura. Wherever man will eventually die, then the earth will accept him for a burial. Because we are made from earth. So I'm actually going back to where I came from, and the earth will accept me. But if God only took it from one place, and only this ground will accept, and not the earth that is across the sea. Davar acher, another interpretation. Natal afaro mimakom he took the earth from the place Shneimar bo Mizbach Adama Ta'aseh li. From a Mizbeach of earth you shall make for me. This is in reference to the Mizbeach. Halvai tehe lo kapara ve'yuchal la'amod. In hopes that there will be a cleanliness, a kapara, an atonement, so that man will be able to achieve and succeed in this world. So in reference from the Mizbeach, where the Mizbeach was built, that's where he took the earth from. Vayipach be'apav, and he blew into his nostrils. Rashi says, Asa'o min hatachtonim umin ha'elyonim. He made man not only from substance from the lower worlds, such as the ground, but also mina elyonim, from the upper worlds, which was Hashem himself. He blew from him. The guf mina tachtonim, the body is the physical, uneshama mina elyonim, and the soul is what's above. Lefi shebeyom rishon, because what happens on the first day, nivreu shamayim va'aretz, the first day the heavens and the earth were created, and that is a combination of both up and down. Heaven is up, elyonim, aretz is down. So now let's do the count. We got 1 and 1 on each side. Basheni bararaki al elyonim. On the second day, the firmaments. So that's 2 for heaven, 1 for earth. On day 3, he gathered the waters and displayed the dry land. So that's 1 for the earth. So now we have 2 for the earth versus 2 for the heavens. 4th day, he created the luminaries. So that's 3 for the heavens, 2 for earth. He created the fish of the sea and the birds. That's a lot. So there are 3 and 3. We got 3 versus 3 here. So now what happened? He had no choice that whatever he was going to create on day 6, aka man, had to be a combination. It had to be a combination of earth, shamayim and aretz, above and below. Ve'imlav, because if not, yesh kin'ah b'ma'aseh bereshit, there will be jealousy with regard to the creation. Sheyu elu rabim al elu b'vriyat yom echad, because one side will have an advantage, will have more, and think of it itself as overpowering the other side. Hashem blew into him a nefesh chaya, lenefesh chaya, and Rashi says here, af behema vechaya nikreu nefesh chaya. Even the truth is, even an animal and wild beasts were called living creatures, living things, and they have a living soul to it. Achzo shel adam hayash bekulan, but man is the highest level of life. Why? Shenitosaf bo de'ave dibur, because added to him was knowledge and the ability to speak, and that brings us 1 level higher than all the other creatures. Pasuk chet. Let's move back into the psukim. Vayita Adonai Elohim gan be'eden mikedem. God planted a garden in Eden in the east, towards the east. Vayasim sham, and he placed over there et ha'adam asher yatzar, the man that he formed. Vayatzmach, and he caused to sprout. Adonai Elohim, Hashem caused to sprout, mina adama, from the ground. Kol etz nechmad lemar'eh v'tov lema'achal. All trees that are beautiful to look at and good to eat. Ve'etz ha'chayim betoch hagan, and the tree of life inside the garden. Ve'etz hadat tovara, and as well the tree of knowledge of good and bad. Ve'nahar yotze me'eden, there was a river that came from Eden, le'ashkot et hagan, that came to irrigate the garden. Umisham yipared, and then it spread out. Ve'haya le'arba'a rashim, into 4 branches. Shem ha'echad pishon, the first one is pishon. Hu asovev, this encompasses it called eretz ha'chavila, all the land of Chavila. Asher sham ha'zahav, where you can find the gold. Zahav, and zahav ha'aretz ha'itov, the gold that was over there was very good. Sham ha'bedolach ve'even ha'shoham, there you also find crystal and onyx stone. V'shem ha'nar ha'sheni Gihon, the name of the second river was called Gihon. Hu asovev called Eretz Kush. This is what surrounded the land of Kush, which is, some say, Ethiopia. V'shem ha'nar ha'shelishi Chidekel, the name of the third river is Chidekel. Hu ha'olech kidmat Ashur, this is the one that goes east of Assyria, Ashur. Ve'nahar ha'revi'i hu Perat, and the 4th river is that of Perat. Okay, Let's go back to Rashi.
Perat is the Euphrates.
Euphrates, very good. Let's go Rashi Pasuk Chet. So Hashem planted in the Garden of Eden from the east. Rashi says, Mikedem, b'mizracho shel Eden nata et hagan. On the east of Eden, that's where he planted the garden. Ve'im tomar, you might ask me, you have a question, Hare kvar ne'emar, it's already written, Vayivra et ha'adam, that God already created man. Rashi's questioning the whole need to tell me again this whole story that Adam was created. We already know that Adam was created. So Ra'iti bebraita shel Rabbi Eliezer beno shel Rabbi Yosef Aglili. He says, I saw in the braita of Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Yosef Aglili, Mishloshim ushtayim midot she'atorah nidreshet, that among the 32 ways that the Torah can be expounded, we're only left with 13 that we quote every morning in Shachrit. But out of the 32 that there once was, Zu achat mehen, this is one of them. And the rule is as follows. Klal she'acharav ma'asehu perato shel rishon. A general statement followed by a specific act, then the latter constitutes a specific clarification for the general statement. Now, what does this mean? So he explains. Vayivra et Adam zeu klal. When the Torah mentioned to me earlier in Maaseh Bereshit, in the first chapter, that God created man, this was the general statement. The problem is, Satam beriato mehechan. He was very obscure in telling us when he created him. V'satam ma'asav, and how he created him. Chazaru peresh, therefore the Torah repeated and said, Vayitzer Adonai Elohim, that God created him through the ground, right, with a mixture of water. Vayatzmach lo Gan Eden, and he caused the Gan Eden to sprout. Vayanicheu be Gan Eden, and he placed him there. Vayipel alav tardema, as we're going to see. Hashomea, one who hears this, savur shehu ma'aseh acher, he might think that this is another episode, God forbid, that this is something else happening, a new, a different story. Ve'eno ela prato shel rishon. Rashi says this is the same story. It's just more details of the original one. V'chen etzel ba'be'ema chazar ve'katav vayitzer Adonai min adama kol chayat hasadeh. Same too by animals. It repeats a second time that God formed them from the earth. In order to tell us that they were brought to Adam so that Adam can give them names. As we're going to see, to teach about the birds that were created from the mud. Vayatzmach, he caused a sprout. Le'inyan hagan hakatuv medaber, talking about the garden. Betoch hagan, be'emsa hagan. Rashi says in the middle of the garden, in the middle of the garden. Pishon. Pishon is Hu Nilus, it's the Nile River. Nehar Mitzrayim, the great river of Egypt. Just like the waters are fruitful and cause a lot of things to grow around it, it's called Pishon. Kemo ufashu parashav. Ufashu is Pishon, to increase the chariots. Davar acher, Pishon, another interpretation of Pishon, Shehu megadel pishtan, that around that area is where flax and linen grows. Egypt was known for their linen. Gichon, what was special about, why was it called Gichon? The river was a very powerful river, and it roared loudly. Home is roar. Like a shore, like a ox that gores. And it roars while it shores. There's a grunt. Chidekel, shememav chadin v'kalin. The waters of the chidekel are sharp and light. And lastly is perat. Perat, shememav parin v'ravin u'mavrin ta'adam. The waters of the Euphrates is very healthy for man and causes them to be fruitful. I guess it's a good water if you want to have children, I guess. And as well, the fish reproduce there as well in the Euphrates. Kush ve'ashur. Rashi here is saying, what do you mean? What's Ethiopia and Assyria? They don't exist yet. The world was just created. Why are you saying it around Kush and around Ashur? So he says, Rashi says, we're not yet there. The Pasuk is talking about that in the future, that's where Kush and Ashur were going to be. Kidmat Ashur, on the east of Ashur, Ashur. He says, Hu Perat, this is the Euphrates, HaChashuv al Kulam. The Euphrates is the most important, the most Chashuv of all of them. How do we know this? Because the word Hu Perat, that signifies something important. Haniskar Shem al Shem Eretz Yisrael. Okay. At this time, we will pause here and we will move over to our next section of Shulhan Aruch. And we'll give a few minutes for people to get that. The Mishnah Berurah. Let's just take that out. Sure. Yeah.
When Hashem was like making all the different creations throughout like 1 through 7, he made like he rested on the seventh day.
Yeah.
But what does that rest day signify? It also signifies humans to rest throughout them working, throughout the week, right? Like the Jews.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
On Shabbat.
Yeah.
But humans only work because Adam and Chava were exiled from Gan Eden. So why would Hashem make a day of rest before he even why would he make a day of rest before they were even sentenced away from Gan Eden?
There was always going to be some sort of work. It was the effort that it was involved in the work. Would be the sweat of your face.
But that's what Hashem told Adam when he was leaving, that he had to work for his food. That it will come from the sweat of his brow.
Yes, so I'm saying it was an extra effort, and also there's a emotional effort, and
but that came after Hashem.
You're right. That came after the fact that that's the punishment.
Right.
But before it was just going to be pashut, just do the basics and things will grow.
And then just rest.
But then comes Shabbat, and then you don't do anything but die. So Shabbat gave a huge dose of bracha throughout the week. Everything that happens during the week stems from Shabbat.
But what work would Adam and Chava do in Gan Eden if they already had everything handed to them? What's the work that they would have put in if they were still in? They
were going to have children. They were going to have to think. You're right. Things would have been a lot easier. What exact work? I'm not sure, but basic necessity. They had to cook. They had to it was all there. But I hear your question. I just think that the punishment was more the beze'ata pecha tocha lechem. It was the worry, the anxiety of putting in the effort, not knowing where your parnas is going to come from. That was going to cause the issue. That was the punishment. Rather, if they didn't sin, it would have been just a lot more simpler.
I once heard a similar answer that it wasn't just rest was created for Adam and Chava or the animals or whatever. Just the concept of rest was created. Not that anybody needed it yet, but just the concept of rest.
Yeah.
The concept of understanding, the concept of knowledge. So just the concept of it.
Nice job.
I don't remember where.
Okay. I want to apologize for last week for those people that are following along with us. I left off on the last se'if of Siman Aleph. I should have finished it, and I didn't realize, but it was my mistake. I finished all the Mishnah Berurahs thinking that we were done with the Siman, but in fact it was still one more se'if, one more halacha in Siman Aleph that we didn't get to do. So that's where we're going to start off actually. We're on page 10 in the Mishnah Berurah. So it's halacha tet in Siman Aleph. There's no Mishnah Berurah, we'll just go through it quickly and then we'll begin Siman Bet. So halacha tet in Siman Aleph says, Yesh noagim lomar parashat ha-kiyor. There are those who have the custom to recite the parasha, the kiyor. The kiyor is a basin that the Kohanim used to wash their hands and feet. We don't do that today, but I believe that the reason why that they had the custom was because that was the first thing they had to do before they can start the avodah was to make sure their hands and feet were washed. And then the parasha of removing yesterday's ashes, which was the second thing, really the first part of the avodah that they did after they washed their hands. And then the parasha of the daily offering. And then parashat samaneh ketoret vasiyato, and then how to make the ketoret. So what we do is we do the tamid and we do the parashat ketoret. That's what we do, but we don't do the kior and the deshin. So those are we do mention the deshin, but not so much the kior. Okay, let's move on to Siman Bet. This is now on page Vav. Siman Bet, halacha Aleph. Lo yilbash chaluko meyushav. So Siman Bet talks about the laws of wearing clothing. Din levishat begadim. So if you're wondering, I didn't know in my life that there was laws how to wear clothing and how to get dressed. But yes, indeed, there are laws on how to get dressed. Lo yilbash chaluko meyushav. First halacha says you should not put on your robe. Back then, they used to wear long robes while you are sitting. Ela yikach chaluko v'yachnis bo rosho uzro'otav be'odenu shochev. Rather, you should put it on over your head and your arms while you are still lying down. V'nimsa kisheyakum shehu mechuseh. Which means at that point, when you get up, now you're already covered. Back then, they used to sleep without clothing, so therefore you didn't want to get up and reveal yourself naked, exposed. So therefore, you had to put on your clothing while you were still lying down. That's halacha aleph. Okay, let's look at Mishnah Berurah at the bottom. Meyushav. Why can't I put it up while I'm already sitting? Because now I'm going to reveal my body. Man has to act with modesty and ksat busha, a little bit of embarrassment in a way when he's in front of God. Even though it's at night or early in the morning and you're in your room, you still have to feel that. As I say, even if it's night or in your own room. God is everywhere. On page Vav. See page Vav? I think it's page 11. 10 and then Vav.
Yeah. On what? Better on?
No, where do you see on the corner there?
Vav with 2 dots or Vav with 1 dot?
Oh, Vav with 1 dot.
So I'm another friend.
Yeah. So we just started the Mishnah Berurah. Okay. Because to God it's always dark, it's always light. There's no darkness in light. God sees everything. Person needs to watch out and be careful with regards to this reason. That he shouldn't reveal his body parts even a little bit. Whatever is normally covered, he should make sure is covered. Always. Aval rashai legalot yado al kubado. But he's able to reveal his arm until his kubad. His kubad is a marpek, that's an elbow. V'tzavaro adechazeh. And he can really reveal his neck until his, chest area. Al ken ha'anpilaot. I couldn't find a translation of anpilaot, but I guess they're a group of people maybe who are more meticulous. Yireh lelovsham ole postam gam ken tachat asadin. People that are holier people, make sure to get dressed and also undress underneath the sadin, the sheets. Shelo legalot raglav, so that they don't reveal even their legs. Shedarkan liot mechusot laolam bimniot elu she'en holchin yachef afilu bakayitz. Because since the legs are normally covered, okay, and people wouldn't walk barefoot even in the daytime, so you want to make sure that even when they're under the sheets, when they put on their pants. And anything that is really covered. Unless you have no other option. As well in a bathhouse, that there is a custom for people to walk around undressed, and it's not possible any other way. In that situation, it's not considered peritud. Here, Rav Moshe Feinstein says that a person is allowed to stand undressed, naked in a bathhouse, even when not bathing, if he's getting dressed. If he's using the area to get dressed, then it's fine. But if a person's bathing, then a person can stand undressed. But even when he's just getting dressed, it's fine. We're going to talk about the laws of bet hakiseh, of a bathroom in the next siman. V'chen, similarly. The same rule applies when a person wants to bathe in a river or in a lake. He should get dressed and get undressed as close to the river as possible. So that he doesn't walk an exposed body for when it's unnecessary. He says his erva, he doesn't need to cover the when he's on the way down into the river. He just needs to cover the organ. Not only that, when a person who covers it, he thinks that he's embarrassed. And now you're embarrassed of the Brit Milah, and you're denying Chas v'Shalom about the Brit Milah. Ach ba'aliyato min ha'nahar, but when you come up from the river, shepanav klape ha'am, where now you're facing the people, there's other people standing on the shore. Okay, no one's really much in the water, so no one's really looking at you when you go in the water. But on your way up from the water, yishche, you should bow down a bit, or yasim yado keneged ervato lechasota. That's when you should try to cover your erva. Ubilvad shelo yigabba, make sure not to touch it. Kemo sheitba'er besof siman gimel, as we will explain at the end of siman gimel. Ita bashas is brought down in the Talmud. Chaluk shel tamid chacham, the robe of a tamid chacham. Kol she'en besaro niret mitachtav. It's anything that you don't see the skin beneath it. So for it to be a chaluk, it can't be see-through. Okay, it's got to be a pretty thick quality. V'ha'idna, nowadays, en isharin bazeh, we're not so careful in this. Mishum she'ochin hakol bebate shokayim ve'en abasar niret. Because nowadays we wear pants and we know that we don't have this chaluk. So we wear pants nowadays, so that covers everything. Okay. Kesheyakum shu mechuse. Mishnah Berurah says, Rotze lomar, as if to say, Kesheyakum, when he gets up, v'yetzeh mitachat kisui sedino, and he gets out from underneath the blanket that's covering him. Shaya munach sham arom keshepashar chaluko, which was placed there. He was naked, right? He's arom when he put on the chaluk. Ye'ata techev mechuse. Now he will be covered immediately. Ki pol chaluko al kol gufo me'atzmo, because the chaluk will fall on over his body on its own. V'ayen lekaman siman reish lametet. He said, go check out later on in Siman Reish Lametet, Saif Bet Leinyan Peshitat Chaluk, with regard to taking off the Chaluk. Hamaniach Malbushav Merashotab, one who places his clothing on his head, Meshakeach Limudo. He's telling us, give us a piece of advice. Don't carry clothing on your head. Not a good idea. You got to carry for the laundry, you the laundry bin and you put it on your head because it's heavy. Don't do that. Right? It leads to forgetfulness. Ve'efshar, it's possible. But if you put something in between your head and the clothing, then you don't have to worry about it. Same thing. Don't wear two clothing. Don't put on two pieces of clothing at the same time. Not good advice. Because that also leads to forgetfulness. Says Kaf HaChaim, what about a hat with a kippah inside of it? You have a baseball cap, okay? Or back then they had baseball caps, the Kaf HaChaim. We're talking about like those old Middle Eastern hats, and you have a kippah inside of it. He says that you gotta watch out. That also that's two pieces of clothing at the same time. Person shouldn't do that. So put on the kippah and then put on the hat. A lot of people, they want to fit the kippah in the hat nicely so they can go like that. According to Kaf HaChaim, it could lead to forgetfulness. There's two opinions really here on the matter. Some say that if you're not makpid on this, then it's okay. It's not isur. Okay, it just brings about some memory loss. You're not doing something that's asur by putting on two pieces of clothing. And some argue, says no, you're actually doing something wrong. There's a pasuk in the Torah that says, "Hisham elecha ushmor nafshecha meod." You have to watch yourself and guard your soul very much. So therefore, if they're telling you that this could lead to forgetfulness, then don't do it, because it's what the pasuk tells us. You got to make sure that you keep your body healthy. Now,
I thought it was going to say like a kippah is not clothing.
It is. It's an article of. Kaf HaChaim says it's an article of clothing. Now, women don't need to be makbid on this. Why? Because women don't have the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Women are not obligated to study Torah. But we should watch, or a lady or a father should make sure that their children, for their future memory, make sure they don't put on two pieces of clothing at a time. All right, so that's what's brought down here. Continuing in the Mishnah Berurah, Ha-kore ketav she'al gav ha-kever. Someone who reads writing that's written on a tombstone. Rav Chaim Kanievsky says it only applies to writing that is protruding from the tombstone, not engraved. Okay, what's wrong with that? O amistakel bifnei amet, or someone who sees a deceased person, stares at someone that passed away. Meshakeach limudo. He also it will also lead to forgetfulness. So these are all things that you want to avoid.
What about people who do the mishmara?
The cleaning, it's a body's covered. Body's covered. Now there are people that do have to cover the body, but they try. But everything's covered there. It's covered. You're not looking directly at the deceased. There are people that, of course, unfortunately, have to cover the body at first, so they do their best not to stare. Another thing that leads to forgetfulness is drawing your hands on your garment for netilat yadayim. You wash your hands, you can't find the towel. You know what happens. Happens to everybody. So you just take your hands, you just rub it. Don't do that. That leads to shichecha, to forgetfulness. And he says, but he goes, look at the Pri Megadim if you want to know how to get back your memory. If you're interested in getting back your memory, goes go look at the Pri Megadim, which he doesn't quote. Okay, moving on to Halacha Gimel.
But a bit of a problem would be the mikveh. If you ever go to a mikveh, like, especially like one of these ones here in Toronto, there are a lot of people in there, a lot of...
Yeah, Vadai, yeah. There's...
I don't have a robe there.
There's no robes, people, but it's fine. There's not an issue there. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. You're in a mikveh or a bathhouse. This is that's fine. You're bathing, and that's it. But just stop to be naked is a big issue, and especially we're going to see when it comes to a bet hakiseh, which is a place where you go to the bathroom. That is we're more strict when it comes to that in terms of how much we can expose. Halacha Gimel on top. Shulhan Aruch yedakdek b'chaluko lelovso kedarko. A person should make sure that the clothing that he wears, he puts it on properly. Shelo yahafoch hapenimi lachutz. That you do not put the inside on the outside. Look at this. Shulchan Aruch is telling us that there's actually a halacha that you cannot wear your clothes inside out. There's a halacha that's written. Let's look at Mishnah Berurah.
Oh, you see some of those kids come to school.
Yeah, of course. They don't even know what they're put on. They're half asleep when they come to school. Bachaluko. Afa pishu tachat kol hamalbushim. Right? Even though your haluk, your undergarment, is at underneath, and you don't even see it. Problem. Don't do it. Because shekem b'shar begadim. All the more so, what is revealed to everybody. Okay? So even your undershirt, your underwear, should not be inside out, even though nobody sees it. Lachutz v'yirau tefirot hamgunot. People will see the ugly stitching, the underside of the garment. Ve'imre hechaluk ve'yitganeh be'enei briot. Okay, and it's going to look disgusting in the eyes of the people. Ve'im lo nizhar ve'afach. And if he's not careful, and he did so, and he turned it upside down, inside out, in talmid chachamhu. If he is a Torah scholar, he has to take off his clothing and put it on the proper way. So he shouldn't be considered as the hated ones. Already, people have a lot of animosity towards Talmidei Chachamim. They find any way to criticize them for things that they do. It's a very, very sad situation. All the more so when if they're going to be wearing something that's inside out. And they'll be because, look at these guys. Already they do this and that, and now they're wearing clothes inside out. Will be hated more in their eyes. Ushar kol adam en tzarich. But the rest of the people, okay, they wear their clothes inside out. It's not the end of the world. Vili tefillah, with regards to tefillah, afilu kol adam tzarich lefoshto v'osho kedarko. When it comes to tefillah, everybody has to wear their clothing properly. Shira'ui az le'ader begadav, because it's appropriate for that time during tefillah to wear nice clothing. Kamevoar b'siman tzadi aleph, as we're going to learn later on in Siman 91. Tov sheyasim shene tzidei hamalbush beyad yemino ve'yilbash hayamin ve'achar kach hasemon. It's very good to put on whatever you're putting in, to put in the right hand first, or the right leg first, and then the left one. Even a lefty should do this, by the way. V'chaven ki hakol nichlal bayamin. Because you should have kavanah when you're putting on your shirt or your pants, that everything is engulfed and included in the right. Umina yamin bala semol, and from the right comes the left. Katav Rambam, the Rambam writes, Malbush tamid chacham yeh malbush na'eh v'naki, that the clothing of a Torah scholar should be clean, pressed nicely, beautiful. Ve'asur lo shimatzeh bebigdo ketem o shamnunit v'chayotze bahem. You can't walk out with a stain, a big oil stain from your Friday night fish come Shabbat morning, with a big stain there on your tie. What are you doing over here? Looks disgusting. And people are going to talk bad about you. You have to come nicely. If you stained your tie and your shirt, you put on a new shirt. You should also at the same time don't wear royal clothing. Look at this guy. He's got this purple velvet blazer with gold sequins coming down where everybody's looking at him. Go, what's this guy? Dancing with the stars? What's happening over here? What's this guy doing over here? Don't do that. Everybody's looking at him. And don't wear clothing of the destitute and the poor where it's an embarrassment to what he's wearing. He says average but nice clothing. Very important lesson over here. Clothing was one of those things that I always said you can learn a lot of musar from, because no matter where you are on the scale of wealth, there's clothing for everybody. You can really go anywhere in the world and find any store and find clothing. You can find a T-shirt for $1, literally, and you can find a T-shirt for $300. Literally the same cotton T-shirt. One has a brand name, okay, a luxury name on it, and the other one is Dollarama, Hanes, whatever it is a lot cheaper. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu make it like this? Because clothing is a necessity. Everyone has to have clothing. So no matter where you are, you can always find clothing that suits your lifestyle. And the Rambam is saying over here, make sure that is nice, but it's benonim. To go, it's unjustifiable according to the Rambam to go and spend $20,000 on a suit, and you could find suits for $20,000. Why? When you can find suits for $200, $300, why do you have to spend $20,000 on suits? Looks just as nice. So according to Rambam, it's a big thing for people to splurge on clothing. He says, Ayin Shamot. Go look over there for more what the Rambam says. Okay, moving on to Halacha Dalet. How are we doing on time? Pretty good. Yin'ol min'al yamin techila velo yiksherenu. When he puts on his shoe, he should put on his right shoe first and not tie the shoe. Ve'achar kach yin'ol shel semol veyiksherenu. Then he should put on his left foot and tie it. Ve'yachzor ve'yikshol shel yamin. And then finally tie the right foot. Haggah says Rama, Uba min alim shelanu, on our shoes, she'en laim keshira. So you have a moccasin or a slip-on. Yinol shel yamin techila. Just make sure you put the right one on first. Says Mishnah Berurah at the bottom. Yamin sheken matzinu b'Torah sheyamin chashuv tamid. We see in the Torah that the right is very important, always important. Le'inyan bo en yad varegel. We see this with the right thumb and the right foot. With regards to the metzorah and the dipping of blood, all the things that are found in Sefer Vayikra. And all the things we see that the right precedes the left. You should then, so after you put on the right foot, you put on the left and then tie it. Because when it comes to tying things, the Torah gave priority to the left. Because that's the left hand is where we put the tefillin on. In fact, there's a psak here written that a lady who doesn't put on tefillin, ladies don't put on tefillin, should do everything on the right. All right, because if the whole reason why we're giving left a little bit of a priority when it comes to tying is because of tefillin, is if you don't put on tefillin, then you go back to the right. It's a big chidush. So
when women put on their shoes, they should put on the right.
It seems here that they should put the right on, the right everything. Right tie, left tie. Because they don't have the inyan of keshira. Again, on pilaot shel levet, I looked for a translation. I can't really, I couldn't find who this is referring to. But they also don't need to put a small first with regards to time. Ve'iter yad, a lefty, shemaniach tefillin bayamin shel kol adam, that he puts his tefillin on his right hand. Yaktim yamin gam lakshira, him too. This guy also should put the right foot in terms of tying first, because he's tying the tefillin on the right. But with regards to our moccasins and slip-ons, always yamin techila. Mishnah Berurah says vegam nizdamen lo shel semol. If he got the left shoe first, yamtin ad sheyaviu lo shel yamin. Should wait till someone brings him the right shoe. Keshehu rochetz Vesach, also when he's washing his body and anointing his skin, yamin techila, he should do the right arm and the right leg. All right, there's an order when you rinse yourself and wash yourself with soap. Ve'im sach kol gufo, and if he is anointing his whole body, rosh techila, the first thing he has to do is his head. Because the head is the king of all the limbs. Ve'ayen bedarchei Moshe, look in Sefer Darchei Moshe. Halacha hey, keshecholet min alav cholet shel semol techila. When you take off your shoes, you should take off your left first. And here the Mishnah Berurah says, Shezeu kevodah shel yamin, because you're giving honor to the right. You're giving honor to the right. Because you're saving it for last. If a person is removing his shoe for the purpose of a mitzvah, then he should take off the right foot first, because that's the kavod of the right. So for the Kohanim that are listening here, and they're taking off the shoes for the purpose of Birkat Kohanim, it's brought down in the poskim that they should take off the right foot first, because it's for the sake of a mitzvah, not for the kavod of the yamin. You should take off the right foot first. Halacha vav on top. Asur lelech bekoma zekufa velo yelech arba amot begilui harosh, and you should not walk 4 amot with a uncovered head. Because the honor of the Shekhinah. Ve'ivdok nekavav, and always check if you need to go to the bathroom. Bichaseh kol gufo, and have your body completely covered. Velo yelech yachef, and don't walk barefooted. Ve'yargil atzmo lipanot boker va'erev, try to accustom yourself to go to the bathroom day and night. That's number 2. Shehu zrizutu nekiyut, because that is what maintains a quick and healthy body. Let's look at the Mishnah Berurah back on the previous page at the bottom. Bekoma zekufa, with a don't walk upright. Shedochek raglei hashechina kibiachol, because that's ki'ilu, like you are you're pushing away the Shekhinah, the feet of the Shekhinah. Al ken katvu acharonim, that's why the acharonim wrote the asur afilu pachot me'arba amot, even less than 4 amot you shouldn't walk like this. Upashut afilu omer bimkomo ve'eno olech klal. And it's obvious that even if he's standing in one place and not walking, he shouldn't do that. You walk up with your chest up to the sky, looking up like this. What do you think you're doing? What do you think you are? Right? It's not a form of humility. It's a form of arrogance. Velo yelech yachef. The Yud said you should not walk bare. No, sorry. Velo yelech arba amot begilui rosh. Don't walk 4 amot with a uncovered head. Afilu babayit sheyesh bo tikra. He says here, even in your house that has a ceiling, don't do so. And for sure, if you're walking underneath the sky in front of everybody, you're underneath HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for sure you have to cover your head. Arba amot, 4 amot, that's 2 meters. Mishnah Berurah says, Umidat chasidut afilu pachot me'arba amot. It is the ways of the pious, even less than 4 amot, you should have a kippah on, or a head covering. Va'afilu be'et hashena balayla, even when you sleep. Some say that the 4 amot is not actually asur. It's just something that are those who are tsanua, who are modest, should do. But the Taz already wrote lekaman b'siman chet, later on in Siman Chet, the bismanenu isur gamur midina. It is an actual prohibition, liyot begilui rosh, to be with your head uncovered. Va'afilu yoshev bebeito, even if he's sitting at home, he has to wear kippah. Ayen shamatam, he says, go look at the reason. Later on in Siman Tzadi Aleph, we're going to see that in the Bet Knesset, if someone's eating in a Beit Knesset or saying Hashem's name requires a head covering, someone sitting in a Beit Knesset or reciting Hashem's name even requires a head covering. Let's finish the Mishnah Berurah on the Siman and then we'll call it a night. V'ken katav b'tshuvat Mari Beruna. V'katav Magen Avraham. We're on the 6th line of the Mishnah Berurah on page 12. Da'afilu ketanim nachon le'argilam bekisui harosh. Even young children, we should accustom them to cover their heads, so that they should have fear of heaven. as brought down Masechet Shabbat of Kuf Nun Vav, Kasir Eshech, cover your head, Ki hechi deleve alach emtad dishmaya, so that you have a fear of heaven on top of you. That's the reason why we wear a kippah, or a yarmulke, of course, is famous, Yare Malka, fear of the king. V'da od, also know, Dilenyan Gilui Harosh, Dai Bekisui Hayad Adarosh. You should know, when it comes to head covering, it's enough to just take your hand and cover your head. This does not apply to brachot, as we're going to see later on. If you have to say a bracha on a food, you can't cover your hand with your head if you don't have a kippah on. How much of the person's head do you need? Does that have to be covered? Moshe Feinstein says you don't need the majority of the head because the Mishnah Brura says you're allowed to cover your head with your hand. So clearly you don't need your majority of your head covered. But the other poskim say that you require most of the head. Let's try to do is cover most of the head is usually good, but again, it's not an obligation. Vehu adin imefale rosho share begilui rosh. Ve'ayen befri megadim shekatav. Look at the Pri Megadim, the right. Telelech arba amot tachat avir hashamayim lo ma'ani bazeh kisui rosh bayad. Pri Megadim writes, walking outside under the heavens, it's not enough to cover your head with your hands. Begilui arosh. Because sheken she'asu levarech. For sure you cannot bless with your head uncovered. Ve'hu adin lilmod begilui arosh. And the same thing when it comes to learning. You can't learn with your head uncovered. Even when listening to a bracha that someone is reciting on your behalf, you need to have your head covered. There's a machloket. If someone prayed begilui rosh, someone prayed amidah, and he realized, oh my gosh, I wasn't wearing a kippah. So do I need to pray again now that I wasn't wearing a kippah? Rosh Zalman Auerbach says, no, you don't need to pray again. But Moshe Feinstein said, yes, you have to pray. Because since there are goyim, there are non-Jews who are meticulous and makpid to be without a head covering, okay, so we have to make sure that we have a head covering. If the non-Jews care about not having a head covering, so we have to make sure we have a head covering. And last thing is that saying shalom, even though shalom could be a name of Hashem, it's a very holy name, it's okay to say shalom without a head covering because the person's not having in mind God's name when he says shalom. If you do have in mind God's name, then yes, you cannot say it without a head covering. And when it comes to learning Torah and brachot, lo mehani bazeh kisui hayad. It's not enough to cover your head with your hand. The yad varosh chad gufa inun, because your hand and your head are one thing. Ve'en haguf yachol lechasot et atzmo, and the body can't cover itself. Ve'yesh mekilin bazeh bishat adchak. Some are lenient in a very, very urgent situation. Kegon balayla, like at night. Or if he has no other choice. He wants to drink, he's really thirsty, he can't find a hat, he can't find a kippah. Okay? Okay, so he goes like this, and then he drinks. But you should try to act like the rest of the world acts. That try to take the clothing of your hand, okay? Like this, and this is a covering. Your hand is not a covering, but the clothing is. Big chidush. That's considered a covering according to everybody. וכתב הפרי מגדים, יש להיזהר בשעת הנחת תפילין של ראש, שלא יברך הברכה בראש מגולה. Person needs to make sure that when he's putting on his tefillin, so the Ashkenazim say a bracha on tefillin, even on the head, that you make sure that you have a kippah on your head. Sometimes you want to put on your tefillin, so you take off your kippah, so you can put it on the head, and they don't realize that the kippah is in your hand, and you didn't, your tefillin's on your head, and you say a bracha. Got to make sure that you have a head covering there. Ufaruk. What about people that have a toupee? Faruk misa'arot. They have a toupee. Af otan shetfurin bebeged mitartav. Even those people that have the head covering or whatever that's attached to their clothing, they have some sort of thing. Yesh le'esor mipene marita ayin. Even though technically it's a covering, we can't allow it because no one knows that you're wearing this type of wig. Okay, so therefore, because of Marit Ayin, we don't do it. Shiomru Sa'aroten. People are going to say that's his hair, and he's not covering. But there are those who are lenient. Ve'ivdok nekavav. You have to check your body parts to make sure, see if you got to go to the bathroom. To see if your body is clean. Bishat Kabbalat Malchut Shamayim B'Kriyat Shema Utfilah. You're about to say Shema Yisrael. You're about to say the Amidah. You need to make sure that your body is in the proper shape. You don't have to. You don't have stomach aches. You have to go to the bathroom. Ve'en tzarich rak bedika levad. You only need to check. And if he checked and he felt, I don't need to go to the bathroom, that's considered a clean body. I checked, I don't need to go to the bathroom, I'm fine. You shouldn't delay Kiryat Shema or Tfilah B'tzibur if you don't have to go to the bathroom. All right? So don't just, you're okay, you're okay. And last Mishnah Brura, Yachef, you should not walk barefoot. Amru Chachamenu, our rabbis told us, Sheimkor Adam kol ma sheyeshlo beikach minalim raglav. Person should sell whatever he has to buy shoes for his feet. Ubimkomot ha'arav shedakan lelech yachef. But in the Arabian countries where it was normal for people to walk barefoot, then share. It's allowed you're allowed to walk barefoot because that was the custom of the people. Od katav b'shem shla. It's written in the name of the Shla Kadosh. Dim oseh mishum teshuva al avonotav mutar. Some people, they take off their shoes because it's uncomfortable and they want to be uncomfortable so that they're like feeling punishment to do teshuvah. All right, I did something wrong. I take off my shoes, uncomfortable. In that case, he says mutar. B'chen asad David HaMelech alav shalom holech yachef. We saw it by David when he didn't do teshuvah. He walked around yachef barefoot. Thank you for joining, everybody. Wishing you a wonderful night. We'll see you next week. All the best.
So today is called the Farouk.
Uh-huh.
Those days are coming.